Didn't you do therapy? Didn't you finish? And why aren't you feeling better? Didn't you like spend all that money and go for a year and do all that stuff? And why aren't you happier? And aren't you over it? And blah, 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 blah. Everybody needs to pump the brakes. And remember, now there's a process. It's like you've been living your life, walking around, doing all things with a broken leg the whole time. Can you get stuff done? Sure, slowly, painfully, but you can function. You can manage a little bit. But then now, we reset that bone. You've done the work, and now it's like, okay, scamper off, run around now. You don't know how to do that. You don't know how. You never have. Welcome to the Pastor's Lounge. I'm Sherry, your unapologetically Christian therapist. Here we talk about all things mental health and wellness from a biblical perspective. So I've had the beautiful privilege of doing a lot of trauma work with clients, with Christian clients in particular, which has been doubly rewarding to watch people not only experience freedom from their trauma, but get a completely new perspective and depth in their walk with the Lord. It's probably been one of the most rewarding parts of my work, and something that has come up repeatedly that I just felt was necessary to address with people who are doing trauma work or have done it recently or about to, is this expectation that you are going to feel 100% better afterwards. Now, in reality, ultimately, yes, that is the goal, and that is an attainable place to arrive to. But I want to just paint a picture and just bring some clarity around what it means in that spot, that space between I just finished this deep trauma narrative work, and which I'll explain for those who are not sure what that is, and then now what, right? And then kind of this gap between I just finished that and now I actually feel really good. There's a spot right here, kind of like right here. That's really not explained well, and I just want to bring some clarity to that. So the scene is, or scenario is, you're someone who has just experienced some extent, it doesn't really matter how much, some element of traumatic life events, whether it's been persistent, chronic, there's been tons of it, there's been a short but very intense period of it, recent grief or loss, whatever it is. It's traumatic, it's jarring, it's impacting the way you're functioning, your emotions are all over the place, you can't regulate, you're not sleeping, you're having flashbacks and nightmares, and there's a lot of, your life is really plagued by what you've been through, and it's bleeding, kind of all over. So now you recognize, okay, can't fix this on my own, time to get some professional help, and you're sitting with your wonderful clinician who is of the Lord, well-trained and ready for you, okay? So you're starting to unpack, which typically looks like you're walking through the story. You're walking through a narrative. Now, there are people who this is all they do all day long. It's not my only area of specialty, but they're somewhere. This is just all day, every day for them, right? Where they're just walking you through this narrative. You're recalling, you're reliving a lot of it. You're talking it through. The emotions are coming, and there's a lot of just fresh grief, and you are just recalling, healing, and working your way up to the present. So anyway, this is definitely one of the ways that I do this type of work, right? So now we're at the point where we have done all the reliving, all the recounting. In the work that I do around, it's a lot of forgiveness work attached to it, and a lot of acknowledging anger, getting all the big emotions out, letting everyone who's contributed to the pain have it. Not necessarily in person, but there's a lot of letter writing, a lot of yelling, and letting people get their punch in the face, so to speak, without actually doing it. Releasing it, and then there's this big cathartic, I've said it all, it's all out. Now what? And most are expecting that this huge relief immediately comes with just a complete recalibration of their lives. And you're like, Pume, I'm going to be off to the races, feeling so unburdened and just ready to attack life all over again with this fresh energy and joy. And they're disappointed because they're not immediately overjoyed. And here is part of why that is. Now, everyone's story is different. This is not like the one size fits all explanation, but it's a decent one for most, which is your whole body, your mind, your emotions, everything about your functioning has been adjusted to managing your intense emotions, your brain chemistry, how you process things, how you see the world, how you interact with people, the conversations you have, the avoided topics, and how you mask and how you kind of dip and dodge to get out of having more emotional discussions and being vulnerable, how you avoid even sitting in certain positions because you always want to be able to see the door because you've been so traumatized by things coming too unexpectedly. Like, your whole life has been adjusted and accommodated to the trauma and to your survival of it. You're trying to navigate a very complex, scary, unpredictable world with a ton of fear inside and unresolved issues. And now we have removed the unresolved issues because we've resolved them, as far as we can in the therapy world. And now all of that restructuring, like all of these systems that have been redesigned, and like all the soldiers and their various parts in your nervous system are like ready to go to fight this, manage the anxiety and, work around the depression and get you through the day. And now it has nothing to do, right? Where's all that supposed to go? You have to literally relearn how to live. And that's the part that I don't think as a therapy world, we don't do a good enough job of preparing you for. I feel, or I try and do a really good job of preparing clients for how awful it's going to be doing the work itself. And I warn people, like, it's going to be worse before it's better. And 90% of the time it is. But once we get through it, we're through it, right? And then there's this uncomfortable in between when your brain and body and heart are like, well, what do we do now? Because we've had the last 15, 10, 20, 30 years operating with this big old elephant on our chest. And now the elephant's not there and it's left this big rut and we don't know what to do to fill this space, right? That's why you feel so crappy after. That's why when everybody's like, well, didn't you do therapy and didn't you finish and why aren't you feeling better? And then you risk feeling worse because now you're judging yourself and everyone else is judging you. Like, didn't you like spend all that money and go for a year and do all that stuff? And why aren't you happier? And aren't you over it? And blah, 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 blah. Everybody needs to pump the brakes. And remember, now there's a process to learning how to use your legs. You understand? The way I've equated it for some people that just need visuals, and I try to do a lot of that here, is it's like you've been living your life, walking around, doing all things with a broken leg the whole time. And sure, or on crutches. Can you get stuff done? Sure, slowly, painfully, but you can function. You can manage a little bit, not as efficiently, clearly, but you're not altogether paralyzed. But then now we reset that bone, we get your leg right. And now you've done the work, and now it's like, okay, scamper off, run around now. You don't know how to do that. You don't know how. You never have. So the first thing I want to say, if you're in the situation, is, first of all, congratulations. You did one of the bravest things of all time. Well done doing this therapy work. And then second of all, be patient with yourself. You went from being an adult as a trauma survivor and a trauma person just working through it and just kind of like muscling through your life with all these bricks on your back, to being a newborn baby in the healthy world. You don't know a thing about living over here. You don't know how to not look over your shoulder. You don't know how to not, shy away or water down your words when you're talking to people. You don't know how to, stop averting your gaze when you're talking to folks. You don't know how to, navigate when there's conflict and not to be like, it's going to end really badly, and kind of, bring in all those, emotional reinforcements and be like, this is not that. This is not that. I don't have to do that. But what do you do? Right? So continue with your clinician. Now we're going to get to and now what do we do, right? With this in between. You're not done when you're done with that. Now you have a new set of work to do, which is how do you re-engage with your life as the healthy person, as the one who's on the other side of it, and now you're trying to reconnect with yourself and with your life. So one, therapy is not over. Now it's just turned a page, okay? Number two, tell everybody to hush. Keep your circle really tight. Make sure that you continue to keep confidants and accountability and supports that have the patience to understand, or have the emotional intelligence, or at least are willing to gain some, to understand that no, we don't just flip a switch and now you are a brand new human. You have to relearn. You have to relearn how to engage with your world differently. And that takes work and some trial and error and some practice, which leads me to my third point. Sometimes you might need medication. And in several cases with some of the clients that I'm thinking of that I've done this work with, that's exactly what it's come to. Why? Because your brain chemistry has completely adjusted itself around what you've been through, and it might need some help reversing the routines. There is no shame in that. There is nothing wrong with that. You are not failing. Therapy didn't fail. You didn't fail. God didn't fail. Your faith is not broken. You just need some help. And that's okay. You need something to grease the wheels to start to turn things in the other direction and just have the capacity to relearn how to live, right? So there's that. You may have to chat with a psychiatrist at some point, and that would be completely okay. All right. You're going to have to practice walking. You're going to have to practice engaging with your world and risk messing up a little. Risk that, you may be good at it one day and the next day it's a little bit tougher, and that's okay. So back to having that patience with yourself. And then ultimately, yes, there will come a point where we turn another page, and now it's you're walking in this. This is who you are. We don't have to keep making accommodations for the slip-ups and falling back into old habits. You can be a new creation. And that's a point I want to drive home as well, because we live in a society that, the psychology world and the counseling world is not run by Christians. I wish it was, and we're working on it, but it's not. There's a lot of secular views out there. And what primary, chief of which is that you don't ever get better from anything. You just navigate better. You manage it better. You take the right meds forever. And you stay in therapy till you die intermittently. And I don't believe in that. Whom the Son sets free is free indeed. When Jesus made people whole, it wasn't come back in 6 months so I can make sure you're still whole. Okay? When he heals all the way. And in space that he has assigned me to work in as a clinician, I believe that I operate in partnership with Jesus, in that I expect when people wrap up therapy with me, truly wrap up, you are whole. You're not well band-aided. It's complete surgery and the cancer is out and gone and not coming back. I believe that with all of my heart. I believe in wholeness. It is real. But in a lot of cases, there's a journey to that place, and that's okay. But we have to understand that that's part of the process. This gray, wobbly in between where you're learning to use both your legs, to stand on them and not keep bracing yourself because for so long you've accommodated around the pain that now it's almost phantom. You expect to feel pain and it's not coming. Now what do you do, right? So let yourself grow and learn and be a little kindergartner in the wholeness side of your life, but be intentional about your growth, right? Don't expect to just come to you. The same way you had to work through it in therapy and work on your trauma, you have to work out. Like the Bible talks about working out your salvation, right? Yes, we're given the whole thing when we accept Jesus into our hearts, but it is a developmental process, right? That we grow in our faith and we experience different levels of of challenges and growth with the Lord over the course of many, many years of our lives. It is a long, beautiful marathon, right? In this journey towards wholeness, you're going to learn a lot, but you have to be intentional about learning. It's not just going to fall in your lap. You're going to keep growing. You're going to keep reading. You're going to keep seeking wisdom. You're going to keep putting yourself in situations that force you to step out into your wholeness and use it. You're going to take vacations when you never used to want to travel and you were too afraid to. And I'd be like, I'm going to book that trip specifically because I know a part of me is afraid to do it. So I'm going to do it. You're going to do some more healthy, scary things to train yourself. I am new. I am whole. I can do this. I know I avoided it for so long because it reminded me of this, but this is not that anymore. I'm going to do that. I can date. I can get married. I can take that job. I can move here. I can be, do this missions work. I can. Yes, you can. With the Lord helping you, and maybe some medication, and maybe a check-in with your therapist every now and then to be like, yes, you got it, and to cheer you on, and with the right people around you who are going to support your process and hold you accountable to what you have decided. I'm going to reach this goal. I'm going to get to this point. Yes, you will. But it will be rocky, and it's a little bumpy, and there's mourning, and there's releasing, and there's trading, one life for another. And all of that is scary, and it's hard, and it's not overnight. So I don't want you to think that your whole process has failed because you didn't write that last letter and have those last words and you didn't wake up the next morning skipping. You may wake up feeling pretty empty and a little bit worse because now that familiar pain is gone and you have this unfamiliar peace, which can be just as scary because you've never been there before, right? But the goal is, don't let that discomfort make you back up and regress. Lean into it. Lean into it because after a while, that will be your more fluent language. Not the language of managing trauma, but the language of protecting your peace. Does that make sense? So I hope this brings some clarity to this area because I don't want people shying away from this process or losing the thread of their already gained process because they think, well, why don't I feel better? I must have done something wrong. And everybody else around me is frustrated that I'm not feeling better immediately. And now I'm in this downward spiral. No need. Here is your validation, your encouragement. I'm normalizing that in between for you. Just remember that's not a permanent place. It's just kind of the elevator on the way to the next floor. You're just in between floors, right? And that's its own part of the journey. There's a lot to be gleaned in that space. And you're doing great. You're going in the right direction. You're doing the right thing. Don't stop. Okay? Don't give up. You're where you need to be. It's all part of the process. And you will experience the success that you are longing for. It is attainable. It is real. It is possible. God is with you and he will ensure, because he who started a good work is faithful to complete it. He's not leaving you half done. He didn't bring you this far to leave you. He didn't challenge you. Get in that therapy space. Work on that. I see that wound. Don't ignore it anymore. He didn't encourage you, get you there, get you set up with the right person just to leave you flailing in between. That's not our God. He does nothing halfway, so you can't either. All right? Be encouraged. All is well. It's all part of the journey. This trauma narrative is not going to take you over. You're going to do the work. You're going to have a wobbly in between, but you will get to the other side. I hope this really sets some folks free that have been struggling with this part of their therapy journey. And if so, please like, subscribe, and definitely share. And until next time, I pray you prosper and you are in great health, even and especially as your soul prospers.